useful presentation. Okay, our next speaker and our last speaker before the break is Shirley Evans. Shirley's a Senior Research Fellow at the University of Worcester and secured RfSC funding in a previous round. So Shirley, we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about your experiences of gaining funding from this programme. So if I can hand over to you.
Thank you, Peter. I can't seem to switch my microphone.
It's off now, but I think you were on just a second ago. Let's try toggling again. Yeah.
Is that
yes,
okay?
I can hear you.
It's showing as muted from my point of view. So thank you so much for inviting me and inviting us along today to talk about our project. I'm Shirley Evans and I'm a Senior Research Fellow with the Association for Dementia Studies at the University of Worcester. And I'm also, my main role, and my role is as manager of the UK Meeting Centre support programme, and that's funded by the National Lottery. And in that job, what I do in the main is support people to set up meeting centres for people with dementia across the UK. So just a bit, what I'm going to tell you a bit about is an overview of our project, just the aims and objectives. I'll tell you a little bit about what meeting centres are, and I'll tell you about our project, and then I'm going to look at our experience with the application and with the RDS as well, and post-application as well. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So Get Real is, we were awarded £350,000 by the NIHR Research for Social Care programme to lead a study to gather evidence from dementia meeting centres in Herefordshire, Worcestershire and Powys. And in short, meeting centres are local social clubs for people whose lives have been touched by dementia, you know, whether that's living with it or supporting someone who is, carers and such like, and families. And they're run by community groups. Our research is led by Professor Dawn Brooker, MBE, and myself as joint PI, and Professor Brooker is mentoring me in this role in the first year, so I shall move on to leading it more in the second year. And we're looking at what community-based centres have done to keep going in a climate where it's very difficult for people starting off in grassroots, and bearing in mind we started the application before COVID, so things have got a lot more difficult as we move forward. Or have they? That's something I'll mention in a moment as well. And it's particularly difficult for people to keep going in rural areas, but I think it's difficult to keep going anyway. So very interested in how such initiatives keep going and provide the much needed support. And it's about, by learning more about the challenges facing the community support groups, we want to develop better strategies to overcome them, to understand what the barriers are, to understand opportunities too, and to make recommendations to others so that they can keep going and provide that much needed support. So a bit more about meeting centres. So those living with dementia and those supporting them can both be at greater risk of social isolation, and we've seen that certainly, haven't we, since March last year. And the impact has been significant there. But they fill a gap in support for people living in the community when people have a diagnosis. We know that there are a number of initiatives out there. Meeting centres are different. It's about supporting people to adjust to change. It is about the person with dementia and the family care. And another key aspect of it is that it's a collaborative initiative. So people will get together when they think, oh, should we have a meeting centre here? Do we need one? And it's not just about one person setting them up or one organisation. It's about a collaboration, and therefore they can act as a hub for other activities. There will be some other initiatives doing something similar, but they won't have that ethos and all the essential features of a meeting centre. And I could talk about that for much longer, but I won't. So they originated in the Netherlands, where there are around 150 meeting centres, and there are around about 225 globally, with new ones setting up recently in Japan, and we've had interest from Ecuador, so absolutely worldwide. And actually pre-COVID, we had 13 meeting centres in the UK, and during COVID there's been a massive interest and explosion around meeting centres, and we now have 28 funded. They're not all open yet, and we have at least another 12 in the pipeline. So I think by Christmas we will be up to about 35, and now next year, by the end of next year, could well be around 50. So all of this activity and this interest and impetus has been coming during COVID. It's very, very interesting to see that. But we're moving from around as well as how to set up a meeting centre, but how to keep one going in the long term, and that's very important, and hence we have this project. So we'll be evaluating 3 case studies of well-established meeting centres. That's in Leominster, Droitwich Spa and in Powys. So they've all been going around 5 years to see what challenges they have faced and how they've managed to succeed and definitely stay open during the pandemic. All of those providing remote support, not furloughing any staff, and just going forward and perhaps moving forward into a sort of hybrid, in some cases, hybrid approach. So we're using a realist approach to evaluation, aiming to uncover the cause and effect factors at play. And we'll be using a survey of what people most value and are willing to pay for going out to the meeting centres UK-wide. And that's via a discrete choice experiment, with the project running for 2 years, from January 21 to December 22. So that's absolutely what we're doing, what we set out to do. And we have a range of collaborators as our project team, and all the time a key aspect is being patient-public involvement. PPI is absolutely key with the meeting centre support programme and the meeting centres themselves, but we have a national reference group and we have strong representation from people with dementia and family carers, and we're constantly talking to them about what we need, evidence we need to collect, what research we need to carry out as well. So they were sort of involved much more before we, you know, they were the impetus really completely behind the project. I think it's also worth pointing that with the meeting centres, what we do as well is there is essential features of a meeting centre that meeting centres will need to meet, and part of that is collecting data. We support all of the meeting centres to collect data so that they can self-evaluate, but also that they have data to present to external funders, and you never know when you're going to need that as well. So it's a range of data anyway we collect around attendance and health and well-being, satisfaction and case studies, so that they'll all be collecting that. But we know that it's very difficult for people time-wise, running community-based initiatives. You'll have generally there'll be staff, a manager and 2 support staff at any one time, and then some volunteers, but actually collecting data is not necessarily on a daily basis their own priority, and their priority is supporting people to live well in the community and to get the help they need. So this opportunity for us to do this research is on top of this is just absolutely marvellous and vital. So we're carrying out a realist evaluation which aims to uncover cause and effect in how different contexts, background circumstances can trigger different mechanisms, responses and processes in people and organisations that can produce wanted or unwanted outcomes. And Get Real will put to the test theory about long-term sustainability. That was built on our previous work called SCIDEM, Sustainable Community Initiatives in Dementia, and that was a realist review looking for those sort of cause and effect factors. We looked at that in the existing literature of community-based groups and activities, so we weren't just looking at meeting centres. As I mentioned, there are some similar initiatives. We looked particularly at initiatives that were regular and running for at least one day a week. And we would also be looking into taking into account the recent challenges presented by the pandemic. So that's key. That's going to be our approach. And there's an overview of what we're going to be doing. So we'll be at each meeting centre, we'll be carrying out interviews and focus groups with people who go, members and family carers, staff, volunteers, governors, trustees and other people in the environment, in the system, health and social care professionals, referrers, for example, and other local dementia strategy leads. So that's really important. And also analysing organisational documents at the meeting centre, so and looking at issues that they have around funding and venues, staff and such like. So that's what we'll be doing with that. And so I mentioned we've got 3 meeting centres and we'll be building up a case study as well. And then also what we'll be doing about how the model works, the problems for sustainability and what can be changed. And we'll be using a bit of a soft systems methodology, Checklin methodology, to look at that. And then building on our previous research, we'll take that all forward, and that research from the SCIDEM and also from the data that we've collected from the Meeting Centre Support Programme, as I mentioned, we'll be building a programme theory for the sustainability of meeting centres and developing resources, recommendations, and which will disseminate through our UK Meeting Centre Support Programme, National Reference Group, Community and beyond. And all of this is informed at all times by PPI. So that's a sort of an overview of our project. And we thought with the application process, so just to go back to the application process, I mean, we always find that these cause-specific workshops are a brilliant resource, and today I've been to these before and I've learned so much again, and I think they're just such a really good to sort of really to focus what you're thinking on, what you're actually doing, and always come away with something for them. And there's always, as we've seen, opportunities to ask questions at this very early stage. But once you sort of go away from this presentation and you start writing up your application, everything along the way is very supportive. The help desk is very efficient and understanding. So I think I've definitely asked some fairly daft questions, and I'm sorry about that. And I think recently I was about to submit the next day, and then I was in a panic because I thought I was in the wrong portal. And I put everything in the wrong portal, but never mind. Nobody ever comes back to you and say, well, you know, you should have thought of that by now, that sort of thing. So it's always worth asking and checking. We have had recent engagement, the Research Design Service, very recent and very efficient and really helpful. After I'd been to one of these sessions, went straight away and I sent an email, and we had an initial call within a week with 2 advisors from there, and then we submitted our outline, and we agreed timescales, and then we submitted our proposal for comment, and that was able to dovetail very well with our research office at the University of Worcester with their timescales and processes. So we had the sort of peer review internally, and also the comments from the RDS, so it worked an absolute treat. So after we got our award, we have very clear information about what is required and key points of contact. We've just submitted a 6-month progress report, which wasn't onerous, and that was to be provided by email with those headings of key achievements to date, details of adverse events or problems and steps taken to resolve them, and any changes. I mean, we've got our ethical approval reasonably quickly, and we needed to make adjustments to the discrete choice experiment questionnaire following feedback from our PPI consultation as well, because it's quite not something that people would usually come across, a type of questionnaire that you would normally come across, and so we made some changes actually to the format and presentation of it. It's actually not more like a PowerPoint presentation, and we changed a lot of the wording, and instead of we were going to present it to both people with dementia and family carers, but we're now only using it with the family carers as well. So that's all being discussed with everybody through ethics and through the PPI as well. And we've started our data collection, which is great, being able to go out face to face into the meeting centres, and we've started somewhere it fits really with staff and volunteers using Zoom. So, but overall, we're all in line with the project, which is great. And I think another thing as well as being part of this and being part of Get Real, so with my application there, then I was invited to review proposals, which I found really useful in terms of CPD, amongst other things, and it's a great dialogue, and you get feedback as to what the outcomes are of proposals you've reviewed, and opportunities for development. So as I mentioned, with this particular project, I'm being mentored in year 1 and year 2. I shall take over much more of the lead, and then I've gone forward with another application where I am the lead. So I think that's been fantastic too. So there's our contact details, and without my name on it, and I'd like to thank you very much for listening to me. Is that okay?
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Shirley, for that account. It's very clear, and lovely to hear of your success. Just checking the questions coming in. In the meantime, have you had to change any of the research plan due to the pandemic? Did you have to go back to the programme about anything like that?
Not because we didn't need to start our interviews until May, June, and the meeting centres, well, actually, Leominster Meeting Centre had been open since last August, in fact, so that access wasn't so much of a difficulty, so we're not behind on that. Just got in.
Yeah, good. There's a question coming around PPI, and this might be for the programme team around about the use of terminology, and an often bandied term is PPI, patient public involvement. I don't know how universal you feel that is across health and social care.
For me, yeah, I have to look down, because I can never remember what PPI stands for, because I don't actually use it outside of this. I do sometimes use PPE, but that's also now used as equipment. But engagement, I can handle that. But no, it's not one that we don't then use that when we're doing the consultation at all. So if we're writing a lay summary, we wouldn't include that, and we don't say to people we're doing PPI with you.
Yeah. Laura, what sort of language do you see in application?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it can be a bit of a mix. I think sometimes if people use PPI in an application, they'll then explain that actually in this case, while we're saying PPI, we mean the inclusion of users of social care, carers, kind of using the kind of PPI model. But or people use, I know the School for Social Care Research uses user care practitioner, I think, UCP. So I think we're not so hung up on the words, just as long as we're getting that meaningful involvement.
Yes, that's great. That's good advice. Thank you. Just check the questions once more. Yeah, probably another one for you, Laura, actually, before we go to the break. Alison's asked, should we include a COVID contingency plan for our planned approach?
Oh, yes, that is a good question. So I think, yes, please, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the moment we are not expecting a kind of a separate plan, because we know that it's not really possible to make that plan at the moment. But obviously, if there's something that does relate to COVID in your application, then please do. You know, if say, for example, it's particularly those people who've been impacted by COVID, then please do mention that.
Great, thank you for that. Right, okay.